Finally, let's turn to our last question and now biggest question. How will the whole world respond to COVID? And the simple answer is we don't know. There are two opposite tendencies that are already obvious. The world might respond by competition, or the world might respond by cooperation. When people suffer a crisis, people respond to crises either by cooperating so that all people together can ward off the crisis, or by competing so that I don't get the problem, but you get the problem. With competition, each country is concerned mainly about itself, not about other countries. And we've already seen competition. There is now competitive bidding going on for protective face masks. There are not enough face masks available now for all 7 billion people in the world. And so within Europe, there is competitive bidding. Russia and Israel and Sweden and France are competitively bidding for face masks. Selfish on the part of each country. Russians want to have their face masks and never mind about other countries. Similarly, another field for competition is there's talk about one country developing a vaccine first in order that that country will gain an advantage over other countries. Or an example of competition is that some countries, many countries today are closing borders against other countries to protect their own citizens. As a result, there are now many citizens of the United States trapped overseas in other countries. For example, there are thousands of Americans, particularly students and tourists, who are visiting the South American country of Peru. And they're now trapped in Peru because they can now not fly out of Peru, but they have been forced to stay in hotels in Peru. But now hotels in Peru are expelling American citizens trapped in Peru from hotels in Peru in order to protect Peruvian citizens. That's an example of competition between countries. The opposite way to respond to COVID is by cooperation between countries. There is already massive cooperation between scientists in China and the United States and Europe. There are research reports published resulting from these collaborations, research reports with authors, Chinese authors and American authors and European authors. There's much sharing of information. There's mutual help. China has sent medical supplies to the United States and to Italy. Because my wife has a niece, a relative, who is a physician, a doctor in emergency rooms here in Los Angeles. And it's doctors in emergency rooms who are especially at risk of COVID. My wife ordered a supply of face masks from China to give to her niece and to give to other physicians in these emergency rooms in Los Angeles. These are Chinese face masks. So will people then, here are these two ways that people will react to COVID: by competing, by saying we care about ourselves and we don't care about other people, or by cooperating. How will people react to COVID? We don't know. It's difficult to predict how people will behave in life-threatening crises. When we look at life-threatening crises, in some cases people cooperate, and in some cases people compete. Consider, for example, what happened in the concentration camps, the Nazi concentration camps of World War II. The victims, the prisoners in the concentration camps, did they cooperate with each other to help each other, or did they compete with each other? That's a subject that interests me and my wife personally a great deal, because the mother of my wife was one of the prisoners in Auschwitz, the biggest, most notorious of the concentration camps. And she was fortunate that she was in a barracks of Auschwitz where the prisoners cooperated with each other. It was a barracks of women, and the women cooperated with each other to help each other, to protect each other. And so they saved each other. But also in concentration camps, there was competition. There were prisoners stealing the shoes, stealing the food from other prisoners. An example, again, based on concentration camps, the famous Italian author Primo Levi was a prisoner in Auschwitz at the end of the war when the Nazis had evacuated Auschwitz. Primo Levi was fortunate or unfortunate. He was sick with the disease scarlet fever. And so he was in the hospital in Auschwitz when the Nazis were evacuating Auschwitz. So Primo Levi and other prisoners were in this small hospital. And they locked the doors of the small hospital. They had an oven and they had food. Other prisoners tried to get into the small hospital, but the small hospital had room for only a certain number of people. And so they locked the doors. They cooperated among themselves within the hospital, but they were competing with the prisoners outside. So how will the world behave? Will the world behave by cooperation or competition? We don't know, but we can hope. My best case scenario is that COVID might prove a blessing for the world by promoting world cooperation. COVID is a worldwide problem. There are many other worldwide problems that could ruin or kill the people of every country. Climate change is a worldwide problem. Resource limitation, such as limited seafood and timber and fresh water, is a worldwide problem. The risk of nuclear war is a worldwide problem. These are worldwide problems, but the world isn't effectively cooperating to solve these problems. Instead, countries are dealing with these problems one by one, although they are global problems. But it is impossible for people to deal with these global problems one by one. For comparison with this question of global response, think of national responses to crises. For a country to persuade its citizens to cooperate and to make sacrifices in order to solve a national problem requires a shared national unity. The citizens of a country share a national unity. They will make sacrifices. They will cooperate when they feel united against a common enemy. Perceiving a common enemy reinforces national unity. And there are famous examples of that. We Americans were unified by the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. That unified Americans because we then realized we faced a common enemy. The Nazi Air Force attack on Britain, the so-called Blitz, unified British people against a common enemy. Finland, the European country of Finland, was attacked by the enormously larger Soviet Union. The Soviet attack unified Finns against a common enemy. Indonesians have been unified with a national identity because Indonesians viewed the Dutch, the colonial owners of Indonesia, as their common enemy. So nations cooperate within nations when they see a common enemy. But the world, until now, has not acknowledged a shared common enemy of all of the world's people. COVID at last is being recognized as a shared enemy of all the people of the world. And so my best case scenario is that all countries of the world will unite against COVID. They have to unite against COVID because if COVID persists in even just one country of the world's 216 countries, even if 215 countries eliminate COVID and COVID persists in just one country, whether that one country is Mongolia or Bolivia or the United States or Nigeria, that one country with persistent COVID will reinfect the whole world. No country will be safe from COVID until and unless the whole world becomes safe from COVID. And so, suppose that the world acknowledges that COVID is now a shared enemy of the whole world. And suppose that the world cooperates. We're already seeing signs of cooperation. If that is the case, paradoxically, this disease that is now perceived as the greatest threat to the whole world since World War II, this disease, this tragedy, may actually have a happy outcome. Maybe this disease will make the biggest contribution to world unity since World War II. maybe this disease, after mobilizing us to solve the world problem of COVID, will mobilize us to solve the world's problems of climate change and resource use. I hope so. And that's all that I have to say about COVID. And we can now consider whatever questions you students of Hundun University would like to ask me.